John Herdman and Toronto FC, who were the first finalists in the 2024 TELUS Canadian Championship. They wait to find out the winner of Whitecaps and Pacific, but it's all parties tonight at BMO Fields.
Big win for Toronto FC. They have earned themselves a berth in the TELUS Canadian Championship final. Some spicy moments, though, between these two teams in both Leg 1, Leg 2. Forge 2-1 victors in Leg 1, but 1-0 the final here for Toronto FC. What do you make of how this all played out, Wheels?
Well, I think we were robbed of what could have been an incredibly dramatic finish if the away goals rule still wasn't in place. Like, this was the reason why UEFA got rid of it, just in favor of overall scoreline in terms of a proper aggregate. The away goal's enough here for Toronto FC. They had plenty of chances to put this game to bed, make it much more easy on themselves, missed a lot of chances. Forge simply ran out of gas. I think that this man right here, Bobby Smirniotis, will be proud of what his team was able to put in. No Kwesi Poku was a real difference. The player was just sold to Belgium last week. They missed that dynamic player with a little bit of pace that could have caused problems up top. But on top of that all, he will feel like his side should have had a second-half penalty after they went one down. It looked pretty clear to me from where we were sitting that Federico Bernardeschi fouled Daniel Parra at that time. If Forge ends up scoring that goal, TFC would have needed 1 to make it to penalties, 2 to go out and win it outright. There was no guarantee the way that the game played out for Toronto FC. So, yeah, I think that Smirniotis will say, why didn't we get a penalty in that moment? Moments like that define this tie. The foul that led to the Owusu goal in the first leg, and then the non-penalty given here. No doubt tonight TFC was a better side, not debating that. But these moments are the ones that decide the way that things go, and it simply didn't work in Forge's favor.
It was clear and obvious. Like, for me, when you dissect and you look back on a football match, that penalty or the non-call for penalty, that is a penalty. That's the one right there. That is 1-1 if they get the opportunity for Forge. So I'd be gutted if I was a Forge FC player right now.
Do we have, I mean, I don't know if that's rolled up yet. Maybe we'll show that. Okay, so we'll show that video in just a moment because we keep referencing it. I want to make sure you at home can see it as well, what we're referring to here. But let's bring you the Canadian Championship bracket. So Toronto FC facing 2 semi-pro teams. Then they met with Forge here, lost the first game, won this second game, but to your point there, Wheels, because they got that away goal, this 1-0 was enough for them. So they've earned their berth into that final, which will take place September 25th. We're working our way towards the second semifinal game. That's between Pacific FC, Vancouver Whitecaps. So don't go anywhere because we have plenty more coming up right here on One Soccer. Meantime, let's go back inside BMO Field. Oliver Platt alongside Bernardeschi.
Federico, how does it feel to be going back to the Canadian Championship final?
It's amazing, it's special. We wanted this game. We wanted to go through to the final. We really want, and we are very happy right now.
It's a beautiful goal between yourself and Lorenzo. Can you talk us through what you saw on that goal?
Yes. It was an amazing goal. Great play to Lolo, but the works of the team is important. Today, we all together we suffered. We played an amazing game. Wasn't easy, honestly, but we have to be continuous like that.
How difficult did Forge make it for you over 2 legs?
No, it's difficult. We miss a lot of chance to score, honestly, especially right now. But in the first leg, 2, we missed 3-4 big chances. In this game, you have to take your opportunity. If not, you will suffer.
What would it mean to be able to bring a trophy back to these fans here in Toronto?
No, it's amazing, honestly. It's at home. We go to the final. The club deserves, the people, the fans, all the fans, the city. We deserve this.
Thank you, Fede. Enjoy the celebrations.
Bernardeschi all over the pitch tonight, no doubt. He is our Gatorade performer of the match. And let's take a look at that goal that Ollie was referring to, the lone goal of this game. The 2 Italians linking up on this one. And it really was a thing of beauty here with Insigne's finish, Jordo.
It was served on a platter. And we said it pre-game. If there's someone that's going to cut up Forge FC's defense and bring Toronto FC to life, it would be Bernardeschi. And all game, he was the one that had the ball at his feet and looked dangerous. But Forge, when you look at this is something they're going to want back. The fact that they had so many opportunities to clear this ball and to really take care of things. You see right there, just like running away before you even win it, and then now you're in a situation where they have more numbers than Forge does. And even though when they play it back, they're patient here, Wheels. But look at this pass by Osorio, where it's just a bit of space that they finally get in the middle. And once it's played through,
it's a good ball.
Great ball. But now look who's open. Bernardeschi's free, you have to slide. He's able to just find Insigne back post, and it looks like an easy finish, Wheels, but laces into the ground to go for a corner. That's a beautiful finish.
Wide open. I mean, Insigne couldn't miss that. That's a great ball by Bernardeschi, but look, the ball's loose, and then everyone just, gets sucked into where the ball is, and that's the danger man right there. And Metusala just can't get out there in time to close him down. Just a little kind of an Ole challenge there. And Insigne was never going to miss that. I mean, he's wide open on the far post. That is an excellent ball by Bernardeschi, the most influential player by far, the best player by far on the field here tonight. I said in the pre-match, Andy, you want more moments like that, because there was a lot of times he was dangerous and threatening, but the final ball or the final touch just isn't there when it comes to Bernardeschi. But that's all it took. You just cannot leave a player like that wide open. And well done to Bernardeschi for the service on the goal.
And Insigne not afraid to mix things up with Forge either. I mean, we saw in leg one how Betty Barabanga was getting under his skin. We saw it here as well, where Insigne ends up picking up a yellow because he yanks at Benny's beard. Can't do that. Gets the goal and then goes right up to the Forge bench. So creating some drama for the viewers, but I don't think Forge appreciated that.
About that later.
We'll talk about that a little later, but let's get to that non-call that you were referring to, because Bernardeschi was also all over the pitch, maybe even in a controversial way here, Jordo?
This one, I think Para just does more than enough to get himself in a threatening position. But this is a pen all day, every week. He takes his touch right in front of Bernardeschi. That's in front of him. Like, I don't understand how the referee, Villanueva's right at it, 8 yards away, and waves it off immediately. For me, that is 100% a penalty. You cannot bump someone in the back and people say, oh, it's shoulder to shoulder. That was shoulder to back. He hit the 7 on his jersey, and he's wearing number 17. For me, he should have pointed to the spot. It's a clear as day, that's a penalty.
It's a shocking miss. It's a shocking miss call. It's more shocking than the foul call that wasn't given on the goal that Toronto FC scored in the first leg.
Because there's so much that happened in that.
Right, there was a lot
Bodies
in it.
everywhere.
Right.
This is clear and obvious that there's an infraction. That's a pen.
And the referee has a good angle on it as well. Like, I'm not sure what he's looking at. Just because a player doesn't dive in and it happens with the legs doesn't mean that it's not a penalty. He just barged straight through the back of the player. I thought that Parra did well, getting the ball out of his feet. He felt the pressure coming, because I'll give Bernardeschi credit. Like, he worked his socks off to get back. But at the end of the day, he didn't get there in time. And he hit the back of the player. You said it. He hit the number 7 on the back of his jersey. How that's not a penalty, I'd love to hear what the ref's interpretation of that is. If we had VAR in this competition, that was certainly one that would have been, in my opinion, been given a penalty.
Also, we just have to quickly say, what does Bernardeschi touch? What does he touch when you get into the box? You have to at least poke, get the ball first. What does he touch? Great trap back, but he doesn't touch anything other than the player. That's a pen.
Yeah, Herdman knew that they were vulnerable at the time. You heard on the call, he was yelling at his players to get back. Forge did so well off that set piece to manipulate that space and bring it down that left-hand side. Simply not rewarded. That's how the game goes sometimes. Sometimes you get the calls, sometimes that you don't. That isn't why Forge lost the game tonight. But for me, that is the reason why they lost the tie. That's the reason. Decisions that didn't go their way.
Yeah, it is a little frustrating when we are talking about some non-calls and how that completely changed the complexion of the game. And speaking of complexion, like I said, things got spicy. A lot of that had to do with Barabanga and Insigne, which started in leg 1. Here tonight, we see Insigne get the yellow card. But let's go back to leg 1. And I know it's going to be hard, and I'm going to still ask it, though. If you're Forge in some way, Jordan, do you take pride in that you got under TFC's skin? Like, Insigne's trying to be cute here, like, let me see your number because I have no clue who you are type of thing. But he knows who he is. And, I mean, Forge got under TFC's skin. And
outside of the goal in these 2 games, Insigne hasn't been as good as Benny Barabanga has been. Like, there's no bias about it. I think in impactful, Benny has stepped up and been there for his squad. You see even here, this tackle, like, this is one time hustling, he's just lining up Insigne, and it's not a foul. But Insigne wants to go and play, and this is what he was trying to play into, Wheels. He got frustrated, he's pulling beards, he's telling players on the bench to shut up. He's in Bobby Smirniona's faces. Like, for me, it just wasn't good enough from that young man today.
I don't have a reference point for if I've ever seen a player pull another player's beard before. So he gets a goal. I mean, it's on a platter. If you're a $15 million player and a player that's won the European Championship, you expect them to score a goal like that. Don't love the celebration right in front of the Forge bench as well. Like, this is a guy that, again, was a top player in his day. Do you know what he isn't right now for Toronto FC? A top player. He goes over just laughing at the bench. I mean, for me, it's just childish stuff from a grown man who should be better than that, a former captain of Napoli. Pulling another man's beard, like, it's just not very good sportsmanship. To be honest with you, Andy, I don't think that Toronto FC supporters like that stuff either. I don't think that they like the lack of effort that, you know, is a regular characteristic of his output and stuff like that. You know, I'm born and raised in Toronto. It's not what Toronto crowds appreciate.
Do goals not fix things?
Well, I give Bernadeschi a lot of credit for that goal. He should finish a chance like that. Wonderful player. He's had a great career. This is not it. This isn't it for me.
I just go back again where it's stinging right now because you're not moving forward if you're Forge. I think you can look back at calls that didn't go your way and you know, you are left with what if. But this is a CPL side that rattled an MLS side. We're also hearing there was no handshake between the coaches pre-game where Bobby was looking for it. Herdman apparently wanted nothing to do with it. I would hope that they shook hands after the game, but the footage showed Herdman sprinting onto the pitch before going to Bob. Like, there was some gamesmanship happening here where an MLS side was rattled by a CPL side.
They were, and I think Forge, there's a lot that they could be proud of in this two-leg affair because they were there. I think tonight they just absorbed a little bit too much pressure, but absolutely when you're looking at the match, they frustrated Toronto FC in many moments in this match.
Yeah.
I just looked at that just at the end of the game. We remarked after the first leg, it seemed like it was a Frosty handshake between Bobby Smirniotis and John Herdman. I mean, we didn't see one. Maybe Herdman caught up with Bobby in the middle of the field, but typically coaches show respect for one another immediately following the final whistle. And before they go on and do an elaborate celebration running to their own fans in the south end of the stadium, they have the courtesy to go up and say, good game.
Sportsmanship.
Good match, good tie. And the fact that the head coach of Toronto FC decided to run straight away to the fans first, I think that says a lot about where things stand.
Well, we're going to find out more about the atmosphere that was inside BMO Field here tonight. Toronto FC walking away with the 1-0 victory. Oliver Platt in attendance. We'll hear from him next here as Toronto FC is off to the TELUS Canadian Championship final. You're watching Match Day live on One Soccer.
Toyota's electrified vehicles are for everyone. Every chauffeur, snack connoisseur, every scenery soaker, practical joker, every road tripper, toe dipper, every 9-to-5er, every long driver. Starting over 20 years ago with the Prius, we now have the largest lineup of electrified vehicles in Canada because this journey belongs to everyone.
I wanna run back to you. All I wanna do is run back to you and make my dreams come true. The only thing I ever do is run right back to you.
When the stakes are high, only the TELUS 5G network delivers.
Thank you, Canada, for making dreams come true. We're with you all the way.
Toronto FC winning here tonight 1-0 over Forge FC. They're off to the TELUS Canadian Championship final. We head inside BMO Field. Oliver Platt joining us now. And Ollie, before going to break, we were talking about how Forge managed to get under the skin of TFC. It appeared so, especially Lorenzo Insigne. And it sounds like things continued to boil over after the match.
Yeah, just a few moments ago, we thought it was all over. It wasn't quite. Nana Mpoma and Lorenzo Insigne, I believe, were exchanging words some minutes, obviously, after the full-time whistle now on the pitch. Mpoma was told by a TFC security staff member to get down the tunnel, basically, get off the pitch. Insigne came chasing along after him, and I didn't get a great look through the melee, but it seemed like there was some pushing and shoving going on in the tunnel, where the Forge locker room kind of breaks off and where the TFC players break off in the other direction. So Lorenzo Insigne just at the center of a lot of this stuff tonight.
Yeah, for the guy who ends up getting the only goal, the winning goal here that sends TFC to the final, he seems to be bothered by a lot of other things as well happening off the pitch. But take us back on the pitch and what you made of how things transpired in this one. I mean, Toronto FC clearly all over Forge, Forge absorbing it defensively, but did it seem to become a little too much for Forge?
I think so on the night, yeah. And I think Forge will say, and I just spoke to Kyle Becker, and they'll feel that they can play better than this and that they have better football in them than maybe they showed tonight. But you have to give credit to Toronto FC for the reason for that, right? I think that just getting Richie Larea back, I think Kosi Thompson has really grown into his role in the midfield as well. Henry Wingo's come in now too. It's given them a different level of athleticism, I think, in the side, and an ability to press teams and smother teams. And Forge just really struggled to get out all game long tonight. So it was difficult for them, aside from a few moments, to really play the football that I think they would have wanted to play. And then it was just a case of if Toronto FC were going to take their chances, or if they were going to continue to go to waste the way that Prince Owusu's did in the first half. So in the end, they got their goal, and that was enough to win them this tie. But Forge pushed them all the way.
You know, Ollie, quickly here, you can never begrudge a team for selling a player, but did they really miss Forge Kwesi Poku here tonight?
Yeah, it's hard to avoid that conclusion. Like, they did the right thing by the player by allowing him to pursue that opportunity and take that next step in his career. And it's part of why the CPO exists, right? Is to give players like that opportunities and then hopefully to push them on to the next level. But there's no question that their attack looks different with his pace up front. Taron Campbell, I think, would have played a bigger part in this game, surely, if he was fully fit to do so. I have to think that wasn't the case. And in the end, it was a little bit more of a blunted attack. As much as Benny Badibanga tried to make things happen, Chouanier, I thought, was full of running and full of endeavour. It just didn't quite happen for them in terms of getting into the final third on a consistent basis tonight.
They just needed that one goal. They did have a couple opportunities, but yeah, just couldn't finish in that final third. Ollie, we'll be hearing your interview a little later on in the show with Kyle Becker. That's Oliver Platt inside BMO Field. Speaking of CPL teams, match week 21. We have Forge taking on Pacific Cavalry against Valor. Time running out for Valor here to make the playoffs. Ottawa, Vancouver, and then Halifax will round things out on Monday against York United. That's all right here, the home of the CPL on One Soccer. We'll continue to break this game down. This is the first of our doubleheader here tonight. Bernadeschi, Insigne, it's a goal. Toronto FC moving on. You're watching Match Day Live. It's the TELUS Canadian Championship on One Soccer.
sport, played with our feet. Funny how lending a hand takes us further together.
Here's a look at your full-time stats. History will have to wait for Forge. They were looking to defeat Toronto FC and earn their way into the Canadian Championship final the traditional way. But as you can see, Toronto with most of the possession in this one, 7 shots on target to Forge's 1. Forge needing that goal that did not come. Here's their captain, Kyle Becker, who caught up with Oliver Platt earlier.
Kyle, that was hard fought all the way to the end. Just what's the overriding emotions coming out of that one?
Yeah, I think we were a little sloppy in our build-up, and we allowed them to kind of step up a little higher in the game. We never really got in a rhythm in that, and it just allowed them to kind of put the pressure on us. So we didn't really get into the rhythm on the ball, and I think you've seen us just give away a lot more sloppy balls in the middle of the field than we're probably used to. Credit to them, and it's difficult. You know, when you're playing the game with away goals, they get that thing. We tie and aggregate on the end of the day, but it just wasn't enough.
Is it a different challenge coming here to maybe facing them at St. Walton's Field?
Yeah, I mean, it presents its own challenges in itself. Obviously, they're a good team. They have good players. Regardless of the form they've been in, they have quality players, and they're expected to win. So we knew they were going to come out and throw everything at the game, and that's what we got.
They got pretty heated in moments as well. Do you take that as a compliment as to how far you've just pushed this team?
Yeah, I guess so, man. If they're doing all that when they score a goal, it is what it is. There's got to be some positive in that.
What will you take out of this for the rest of the season as you look to compete for 2 trophies still on the table for you guys?
Yeah, at the end of the day, we've had 4, I would say, really good performances. Obviously today, we felt like we didn't have our best stuff, but the 3 leading up to it were fantastic. So we know we got guys who can play at a top level. We just got to keep going, keep motivating ourselves, and now we got to switch over to domestic league and see it out.
Thank you, Carl. Well done tonight.
Well, that Canadian Championship, the Voyageurs Cup, will once again elude Forge FC this year. Bobby Smirniotis has been very open in saying that's the one we want. They want that. They've won the CPL 4 times. They want that Canadian title, but it will have to wait. And it is a game where maybe they could have done things differently.
Maybe. The stats bear it out. Toronto FC were by far the better team here tonight. And it wasn't just Forge being sloppy. I thought that Toronto FC's approach was very good to this game. They kind of forced them into... I think they learned something from the first leg, understanding that Forge is comfortable on the ball and they want to work it out of the back. So TFC set up traps in the midfield. And far too many times, Forge played into it. I mean, Toronto FC could have had 4 or 5 in this game here tonight, Jordan. The fact that they didn't finish... I mean, it's a combination of Prince Owusu just having a nightmare and maybe just not having enough cutting edge in attack. And that's what John Herdman knows he needs to take this Toronto FC team forward. He needs a top-notch number 9 to reward them. So, look, Forge just didn't have the legs. I thought TFC were just by far the better team here tonight.
Yeah, I would agree with you for sure. Specifically about baiting them into certain passes, but Forge are sloppy, some of the sloppiest passes that I've seen, and I think that had to do with the way they had to defend all night. And when you're defending so deep and then you have to go and try to play their football, you see passes that they're trying to make that they wouldn't normally make. And look at this. Prime situation where you never see Kyle Becker really turn into pressure in the midfield. And then, oh, look, this man right there, Bernadeschi, running at a back 3, not even a back 4, because Forge were thinking that they're going to go forward. And that should be a goal by Prince Owusu. So for me, evaluating this match, there are too many self-inflicted wounds. Look at this one again. Hojabrapor, for me, is the best defensive midfielder in the Canadian Premier League. And he knows those moments when to hook it long or when to play simple and short. And he gets that one wrong right there, Wheels.
All of these mistakes come from them trying to play, maybe a little bit far too cute, far too much out of the back. Agreed. Typically, when you see teams from, a lower league, they don't try to maybe play like that all the time. That's in the Forge DNA. Smirniotis and this team know to play one way, and that's the way. And I think that TFC, again, learned something from the first leg and kind of adapted. The one thing I wonder if Smirniotis may have changed or would change if he could do it all over again is Oluwabi Belawu playing at left back and maybe having Para in a more advanced role. Gives you a little bit more protection. Para was adventurous going forward, leaving a player like Bernadeschi, who was the best player in the field tonight, with just far too much space. Because Oluwabi Belawu, much more stay-at-home, defensive-minded, did a great job against him in the first leg. Could be some minor alterations that they could have done differently.
I think the biggest alteration you would have made, and this is obvious, like an obvious thing to say, but it's when you have a striker in form and you take them out of your squad and Kwesi Poku, you see the detriment that added tonight. They needed someone to run in behind. They needed someone to win those fouls. They needed someone to do the work that they've been doing for the past 2 months, and they just didn't have it. And it really cost them on the back end.
Yeah, there were just moments where you felt like getting to a pass, like you have to go to the pass, waiting for it to come to you. Well, Toronto just swooped on in and took it. Thank you very much, right? Everything just seemed to slow down a little bit.
Snowball effect after that.
Yeah, in that offensive third. But you know what? You're right. Credit to Toronto FC. They came out looking completely different than they did in leg one. Also had different players. That's a huge reason why. So we know they're in the final. Who's going to join them? Well, coming up, we're going to get you ready, 10 p.m. ET, for Vancouver Whitecaps Pacific FC. The Whitecaps have won the last 2 Voyageurs Cups. They are looking for a three-peat. Only Toronto FC has done that. When we return, though, we know that the Canadian men's national team will be back in action in just a few weeks. They have a couple friendlies in September 7th and 10th against the USA and Mexico. Their roster was released today. Let's talk about that next on the show.
Canadian soccer fans, we're different. We cheer on the Reds while cheering out our motherlands and each other's